Australian Open Tournament Director responds to Coco Gauff's comments about player privacy. Coco Gauff has now received an official response from the Australian Open Tournament Director following her comments. Gauff called for players to have more privacy at the Australian Open after she was caught on camera smashing her racket following her quarterfinal defeat to Elina Svitolina. This has created a huge conversation, with even Novak Djokovic reacting to Gauff's comments at the Australian Open. Amanda Anisimova also responded to Gauff's comments, as well as six-time Grand Slam champion Iga Swiatek. Following the reaction to this incident, the WTA have released an official statement in response to Gauff's comments, and now Australian Open Tournament Director Craig Tiley has had his say. Craig Tiley gives his reaction to Coco Gauff's comments at the Australian Open. Tiley has been the Australian Open Tournament Director since 2006, and there have been some rumors that this could be the final year of his tenure at the tournament. Despite suggestions that he may be leaving the event, Tiley still had some big questions to answer when speaking to Tennis Channel. In this interview, Tiley was asked about the calls for more player privacy at the Australian Open, which he appeared to empathize with, while also pointing out that there were numerous areas at the tournament where there are no cameras. The first thing that we do, we want to listen to the players. We want to really understand what their needs are and what they want. So that's the first question we will ask, said Tiley. We've heard you and we'll go with whatever adjustments we need to make we will make. It's a fine line between the player promotion and the event promotion and where the cameras are. Now, we do have many areas behind the scenes, like for example we have a coach's room where players and coaches can interact. Has no cameras. There's the locker room, the training rooms, the recovery rooms, the beauty room, the sleep room. There's many places we have on site that are player only. No cameras. In the general corridors going in and out of the areas walking on the court, of course there are cameras, but we'll continue to review it and make sure the players are comfortable with it. But at the same time, we also want to bring the fan and the player closer as you do, because we believe that as tennis players we can really help lift up their value and the love that the fans have for them. But it's a fine line that we got to keep walking. Craig Tiley suggests he actually disagrees with a rule the Australian Open has. Gauff's comments about player privacy have not been the only controversy at the Australian Open this year, with the heat being a big talking point. This was highlighted during Jannik Sinner's third-round match, which saw the world number 2 come from a set and a breakdown against Elliot Spitzeri after struggling with cramp. The Australian Open was heavily criticized for their heat rule, which enabled Sinner to take a break in the middle of a set, and now even Tiley has suggested he has some issue with it. I think that's something again to take player feedback on, because we've asked that question and one player will say no. No. I want to play outdoors. This is an outdoor event, and then only when those conditions change should the roof be closed, and they do when our heat index scale is 5, explained Tiley. Personally, I'd like it to be closed sooner, but that's player feedback. So, we need to get all the players to agree, and if that's what they want us to do, absolutely we'll be open to doing that. The Australian Open is now in the latter stages of its 2026 tournament, with just 4 players remaining in both the men's and women's singles draws. Whether Tiley will still be at the tournament to try and fix some of these player issues next year remains to be seen. A crack against concrete, not a forehand winner, not the racket thwack of a beautifully executed serve, but the frustrated release of an elite athlete whose emotions were exposed in the most public way possible. That moment, when Coco Gauff smashed her racket after a 6-1, 6-2 quarterfinal defeat at the Australian Open, was captured not just by her opponent, but by an ever-watchful network of cameras broadcasting every inch of Melbourne Park's backstage corridors. Cameras aren't supposed to catch private moments. They are supposed to capture greatness, drama, athleticism, the much-loved precision of sport. But in this case, they caught something even deeper, a crack in the veneer of the professional athlete's public persona, vulnerability, frustration, and a growing question about what athletes owe the world and what the world owes them in return. And off-court, the conversation ignited. Movie camera ***. Are we animals in a zoo? Coco Gauff's push for privacy ***. Gauff, the world's number 3 women's singles player and 2-time Grand Slam champion, spoke candidly after her defeat. She tried to find a spot out of view, somewhere she believed unobserved, to vent her frustration by smashing her racket. But it didn't work. Cameras were everywhere. Hallways, corridors, player areas, even places athletes assumed were private. I tried to go somewhere where there was no cameras, Gauff said. Maybe some conversations can be had, because I feel like at this tournament the only private place we have is the locker room. Her point wasn't just about equipment destruction. It was a call for respect for human emotional space. And it wasn't an isolated sentiment either. Soon, Iga Swiatek, one of tennis's biggest stars, echoed her concerns, quipping that players sometimes feel like animals in the zoo, where they are observed even when they poop. It was hyperbolic, but powerful, a cultural critique disguised as a metaphor. Even Novak Djokovic, a longtime fixture in the men's game, acknowledged the sentiment, acknowledging that the modern push for never-ending content makes constant surveillance almost inevitable but not necessarily healthy for athlete well-being. The broadcasting dilemma, humanizing or exploiting. To many fans, behind-the-scenes footage creates connection. It's the breakfast room laughs, the recovery gym sweat, the unfiltered moments that television packages as storytelling. Tournament directors and broadcasters defend this access by pointing to fan engagement, commercial opportunities, and promotion of the sport and its stars. But there's a cost. When private moments become public spectacle, especially after a heartbreaking loss or a personal emotional reaction, the line between visibility and invasion evaporates. Gauff's complaint wasn't simply about being seen on camera. It was about agency, the ability to choose what part of her emotional life should remain her own. And when that agency was stripped away in a flash of live broadcast, it sparked a debate about the ethics of immersion in modern sports coverage. This question, what belongs to the athlete and what belongs to the audience, is the central tension. A tournament director responds, listening, but walking a tightrope. As the conversation escalated, Craig Tiley, CEO of Tennis Australia and tournament director, stepped forward with a response grounded in both pragmatism and concern. Tiley acknowledged the players' discomfort, reaffirmed the value of cameras in promoting the sport, and indicated that organizers are willing to listen and reassess. We want to listen to the players. We want to really understand what their needs and what their wants are.